And okie dokie, we're in here on desktop. All our settings are at stock. You can see in CPUs over there. Our core multiplier is at the stock ratio. The volts are at stock volts. And we're just going to do a really quick little benchmark run with Cinebench just to get a baseline score. You just want to make sure you know what your baseline scores are. So as you're overclocking step by step, you want to test again just to make sure that overclock's working. You should see a response in your results. And our baseline run's complete there. 1106 Cinebench points on the multi-thread and 141 Cinebench points on the single thread. We're going to note that down just to make sure we're actually making improvements as we go along. Now that we've got our baseline for our performance, we'll just get a quick baseline temperature read as well, because you always want to make sure that you keep track of your temperatures, because voltages and temperatures getting too high can be a very bad thing. So to check our temperatures, we have a program here called ASUS. You can download this for free with the trial version for 30 days, or the paid version like we've got here is about $20 a year or something along those lines. Nothing too onerous for a program that can do quite a bit if you're into this sort of stuff. So I'll probably let that run for 15 minutes just to get a baseline temperature reading, and that's about the time we'll be using to test in between our overclocking steps. Each time we step up the clocks, we'll do a 15-minute temp test just to make sure it doesn't crash. And of course, when we settle on our final overclock, we'll do a much longer half hour, maybe an hour or more on the ASUS stress test just to make sure that everything's settled in and it's nice and stable. Okay, so ASUS has been running now for a bit over 15 minutes. It's all fairly consistent and nothing major going on really. Everything's running nice and cold since we've got the water cooling on there, and across all cores in stock trim you're running at about 3.4 gigahertz, so not a lot of heat coming out of the CPU. As we can see, we're peaking at 37C, and if we go over to our statistics, we'll see that the average is around about 36 degrees. Yeah, 37 is still the peak, so everything hunky-dory there. So now that we've got our baseline temps and our baseline performance on our baseline clocks, let's go into BIOS and have a look at our overclocking options. Okay, here we are in BIOS. If you've never been in a BIOS before, welcome to your first BIOS. Don't be afraid, there's nothing too scary about them, just don't play with things that you don't know what they do and you'll have happy days. So basically what we've got here is all the avenues that we need for overclocking, all sorts of different things, and then other things that we don't need to. Let's just go over the stuff you do need to know. There are two main methods that you will want to use to overclock your CPU in this case. The first is just deciding what sort of voltage you want to run. You can look it up online on forums, what sort of voltages are safe. And then you can try and get the highest clock you can for that specific voltage. That's the quick and easy way. You might not get the exact maximum that CPU can give if you're running a conservative voltage, but what you will get is stability and you'll get reliability and you won't get any problems. The other way, if you really want to shoot for the stars, is to use a bit of a ratchet approach. So you'll ratchet up the CPU core, the ratio or the megahertz that it runs at, ratchet that up a little bit until you get a failure in your testing. That's the point where you need to apply more voltage to the CPU. And now, when you're doing this sort of thing, you really need to be monitoring the state of the CPU, especially the thermals, because the hotter it runs, the more damage higher voltage does over time to your CPU. So if you're going to be running high voltages, you really need to be watching your thermals. That's very, very important to watch your thermals. So in this ratchet method, which is the one we'll look at today because it's the safest one, especially if you're shooting for maximums or doing this for the first time, you have your CPU core ratio right here. And if I just press up and down on the arrow keys, I can raise or lower the target CPU speed. So I'm just going to keep going up and 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 up. As we saw in Cinebench just before, we were getting 3.4 gigahertz across all cores during the Cinebench runs. So let's try, you can bump that up to 3.5. You can do a test run if you like at that speed, see that it's all okay. I guarantee you it will be, because these CPUs are overvolted to hell and auto voltage just keeps piling voltage on ridiculously. Then you can, if you want, you can put in your own voltage. You can actually lower the voltage and try for an undervolt at 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, etc. and just find where that stability point is. Find out where it starts to crash for that given speed. So there's now 3.8 gigahertz dialed in. If we come down to CPU core voltage, I'm going to put that into offset mode and get rid of, I'll just put 12 millivolts on there just to get rid of auto. Auto is horrible for voltage. It will just keep throwing it in there. So we've skipped straight up to 3.8 with 12 millivolts, which is absolutely bugger all. It's just to dial something in there so that the CPU doesn't try and drink all of the volts. I'd rather that not happen. And we save those changes. As you can see, they're the changes we've made. Okay. And see if we boot. And we have booted in desktop and loaded up Cinebench R15 and CPU-Z just to check over that our overclock has stuck. We've got the 1.237 volts up there, quite stable, and our 38 multiplier to give us 3.8 gigahertz. Our bus clock obviously fluctuates a little bit, but once you get that under load, that should straighten itself out. Let's get the run done and see how we go. Ta-da, completed, and we see a nice little increase to our multi-threaded and single-threaded scores, so quite a decent jump over the stock settings. Now that we know that we have increased our scoring potential, let's have a look at the thermals, because it's very important to keep an eye on the thermals no matter what. So I'm going to load into AIDA64 and check it out. So I'm just going to let that run for a little while, and if there's no crashes, then we're going to go back into BIOS. We're going to up the clock again. I'm not going to touch the volts. And we're going to see if we can get a crash. We're really looking for that crash to find out where our break point is for that amount of volts. Now, the idea here is to just bump up some CPU ratio until we get it to crash. Now, you can do it in very small increments if you'd like. It's completely up to you what you feel safe with. You remember, your mileage may vary. What you see on this screen, you might not be able to do, or you might get better on yours. You're just not, it's a silicon lottery, so you're just not sure what you're going to get. So if this is your first time, probably take it easy. Just go in smaller steps, take your time, take all day if you have to. Just do it safe, do it properly. Don't cut any corners and you'll have a good time. So just to keep things short and to avoid a lot of buggerizing around, I'm going to go straight to 3.9 gigahertz. I'm not going to touch the voltage. I'm going to leave that as it was, just because I wanted to see where that crash point is. So, surprise, surprise, another hassle-free boot into Windows after messing around the BIOS. We're just going to have a look in CPU-Z. We've got our voltages there. They're the same voltages we had at 3.8. And our clock multiplier is at 3.9 as we have set in the BIOS. That's all great and gravy. Let's run the Cinebench and see if we can get any trouble. And we've completed that run, no problems at all. We've picked up a little bit of score in the single-threaded and the multi-threaded scores in Cinebench. So that means we're getting a little bit of extra performance for our troubles. Now we just need to make sure it's stable in an intensive workload and make sure the thermals are okay. So off we go again. So after running AIDA64 for some time, we're seeing some really excellent thermal results. We're in the mid to low 40s temperature-wise, and we're not seeing a lot of spikes. It's quite flat. This water cooling is doing a great job of keeping these temperatures under control. If these temperatures were higher, say 60, 70, 80 degrees, we might actually be finding instability at these voltage levels, because the higher the temperature goes, the more voltage you need for that stability. So we might not have been actually seeing the same stability if this was on a smaller cooler or an air cooler or something like that. Well, here we are back in BIOS again. We managed to pass the AIDA tests with flying colours. So let's go for the magic 4. Let's cut to the chase. So let's just make it 75 millivolts on the cooler and see where that gets us. That's about a 50 millivolt increase, or 60 millivolts if you can math. Quick math. And save that. Yes, good. Going up. Brilliant. Well, we got boot. We got boot, guys. We're in Windows. 1.308. Oh, I don't know if that's going to be stable. Yeah, so we're fluctuating between 1.308 and 1.33 volts as the auto load line calibration does its thing. Oh, a little bit of a dip to 1.286. I get a feeling we might crash. I think we might. Let's give it a shot. Stop babbling on, Nath. Come on. Give the people what they came here to see, and that's a crash. Yeah. There it goes. 1.286 volts on the core, meaning it got no. It's a no-do. Okay, guys. There you go. That's a hard lock too, by the looks of it. Yep. Windows key, nothing. Control-Alt-Delete, nothing. Yep. That's a reset, kids. Oakley dokley, we are back in BIOS again. So we've still got our 4 gigahertz. Now, if we get to around the 1.35 volts and up mark and we're still not stable, I may have to go into the power settings. There might be it's a little bit of headroom to gain there. If we get into the Digi Power Control, let's, what did I say? Oh God, how many did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's a whole volt. No, mini volt, Jesus Christ. It's 100 millivolts. Come on. Nathan is quick, mate. I didn't sleep last night, guys. Sorry. Very sorry. I was too busy playing games all night and then it was 5 AM. It just happens. You know that. Okay. So all we did there was bump up the voltage. We gave it a good increase. That's 30 millivolts. Hopefully that can stabilize us. Oh, and here we are, we're back into the desktop. We booted into Windows, no problems, of course, because we have increased the voltage. And we booted fine on the previous voltage. So what do we got here? 1.352, 1.330. It's rising and falling a little bit. So I get the feeling that a little bit of load line calibration adjustment in the Digi Plus section of the BIOS will help us out a little bit if it crashes again. So we might be sort of getting close to the stability point of this CPU with auto settings in the power phases. Let's just have a quick check, a cheeky check, see if we get another crash. Well, look at that, we're down to 1.308 volts there. And we managed to get through Cinebench this time. We've recorded a score and our voltage did fluctuate down to 1.308 volts, which is quite a big dip. I do think that we will need to do some load line calibration because it might not pass ADA. I'm really hoping it fails ADA because that will validate my line of thought. So we're 6 minutes into the ADA test and so far no crash, folks. Oh, this is embarrassing. It's looking fairly stable, which shows what I know. I think I have a way of making it crash, and that would be to add in the stress FPU option. So what I'm going to do is just quickly note down some stats, because I like taking notes. We got max 49, average 47. Yeah, cool. That's all I needed there. So let's go back and let's chuck in some FPU stress and watch this thing crash harder than a wingless aeroplane. Now that's insensitive. Watch this crash harder than me after a 4-day bender. Oh, come on, man. Come on. Oh, don't do this to me. Why you not crash? Oh, goodness. It's going to pass, isn't it? Oh, hey! We have crash! Oh, thank God. I was starting to look like an out-and-out quit. No, I usually do look like one of those, but I was especially looking like one of those. Alright. Let's go back into BIOS and see what progress we can make with some power adjustments. Oakley dokley people. So let's head into Digi Power Control. See, everything here is set to auto and is pretty generic. We'll try level 3. We may want level 4, but we'll start level 3, and if we still crash, we'll go level 4. We want more current to the CPU. We want a manual switching frequency. What's the max? 500. We want 450. Can I get a hell yeah? Let's go extreme on the power phase. I don't think we need to worry about SoC load line. Yeah, we'll leave that auto. We're not worrying about DRAM. Yeah, we'll leave that as it is for the moment. Actually, we might just give a level 3 a little bit more current and a switching free. Yeah, bugger it. Why not? What can it kill? Only a CPU. Leave the RAM. Good stuff. Voltage offset's fine. We'll leave that as it is. That's all gravy as we go down. Looks good to me. Yup. Let's exit this BIOS. Yep, frequencies. Good. Capabilities. Good. Yep. Love it. Let's see how it goes. So we're just in here quickly just to check out how stable our core voltage is. As we remember, it was highly fluctuating, and that can be a cause of why it crashed during the FPU testing. So it's sitting at 1.352 volts. I haven't seen it fluctuate yet, but let's put it under a little bit of a load and just not worrying about this score here. We're just worrying about this number here and whether or not that moves. If it stays stable, then chances are it'll be stable under the heavier loads of the FPU stress test. Well, fantastic news. That did not budge one little iota, so let's get rid of him. Okay, we're just going to quickly run everything loaded up here, CPU, FPU, cache, memory, and let's see how stable she runs now. So those adjusted power settings. Now we have been under the full FPU, CPU, cache and memory stress test for a little over 10 minutes now. And as you can see, the thermals here are really consistent. You got those spikes there when the FPU is buggerizing around and causing all sorts of havoc for the CPU with those little temp spikes. Let's have a look at some statistics. CPU 62 degree on the peak with a 53 average, which is really good considering I've only got 2 fans now on my radiator out of the 6 I started with, since 4 of my EK Vardar fans are dead or dying, 2 are completely ground out, they will not turn, and 2 are well on their way. So all in all, 240mm fans on this 420mm rad aren't doing too bad at all, really. So look, I know this CPU, I've tested it a lot over the last year that I've had it. If it's past the first 10 minutes, it'll just keep going. If it'll crash in the first 10. So I could leave this going all day and I guarantee you there wouldn't be a crash. So now that we've got our CPU overclock dialed in, I like where those voltages are at. It's time to turn our attention now to the memory. We'll go ahead and stop that. Arigato, Mr. Roboto. And we're going to BIOS and apply a very quick memory overclock and see what our final scores look like. Yay! In we go once more into the breach. Back into BIOS. Everybody having fun? Hope so. I am. Oh no! Let's have a look. What are we after now? We're after some RAM settings. Let's overclock the BIOS out of this, because we're still at JDEC stock settings. Now this particular kit is rated to 3200 MHz CAS14 latency, which is this little number here, which it's currently set to 15. If you're not experienced in RAM overclocking at all, which I particularly aren't all that experienced, I'm pretty good at getting my primary timings down, which are these ones that you see right here, but it's all of these little bubby ones that I have no idea what they do. So yeah, let's let the experts take care of this, because I want to run a little bit faster than the 3200 C14 that the kit can do, which I know it can do. But ASUS being good guy ASUS, or good girl ASUS, either or, that's pretty neutral. I'm not sure whether ASUS is a boy or a girl. Doesn't matter this day and age. We have some presets that are provided to us by overclocker called the Stilt. He's a Finnish man, which doesn't mean he's at the end. He's actually from Finland. I like the look of this safe 3333 megahertz BDI single side profile. So I will apply that, and it will apply not only, if I can get the mouse on the thing, it will not only apply some tighter primary timings, it will also tighten up the sub timings drastically. So applying the Stilt's timings, we can see where the changes have been made. We're now dropping to 14, 14, 14, 14, 30, 52. All the sub timings have been taken care of by the man himself. Command rate down to 1T, gear down disabled. That's great news, everybody. Right, so those are the timings. Don't even try and write them down because I'm scrolling too fast. Yeah, let's get back out here. Now I've also got to set the memory frequency to 3333 to match. No, that's 3133. Come on, brain, you got the dumb. That one, 3333. Happy days. And let's not forget, let's already apply the DRAM voltage we need. And let's just jump back in here to the DRAM current capability. Let's whack that up. No, oh, 130, 120. Pff, come on, it's not enough. What do we got? Extreme switching frequency. Let's raise the buff. Raising the switching frequency will increase the heat output, but it increases the voltage curve response. I think I've pronounced that correctly, which means better stability. Now, my RAM has never gotten anywhere near too hot in this case with the airflow, so I am not concerned at all about this RAM overheating, or the VRMs overheating for that fact. Okay, so we should have, if we just summarize over here, our increase to the RAMs, both of them, ramming away at tasks. Yes, very good, all the good things. Let's apply it. Might take a couple of boot throughs because RAM timing can be like that. Let's see what happens. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the big one. We've got our 4 GHz overclock dialed in. We have now got a 3333 megahertz RAM profile there. It's done by the Stilt himself, so hopefully this leads us to a really good result. Fingers crossed, everybody. Oh, there we go. Our final snort bench results, 1354 CB. Let's remind ourselves what stock was 1106, which is an increase of around about 22.5%. I just did the math. It is 22.5% on the multi-thread. And 164 versus 141 Cinebench is a 16.5% increase. So it really does pay for the multi-core, and obviously not as much for the single core. It doesn't seem to benefit as much, but for multi-threaded loads, which most things are these days, there are very few games that are genuinely single core. Most of them will use 2, 3, some 4, 5, 6. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Very happy with that. The only thing left to do is to check our temperatures in ASUS 64. I know this is stable. I've done this before a few times. This is the settings that I run daily now, and has been perfectly fine and trouble-free since the get-go. Okay, the final test there is the full stress test, CPU, FPU, cache and memory in ASUS 64. It's now been running for almost an hour and 20 minutes, hassle-free. When we flick over to statistics, we can see that our CPU is sitting around the mid-50s. It's peaked at 67 at those spikes there, average of 55, so it's generally sat around the mid-50s for the bulk of the time, which is perfectly fine for what we're after today. And that is where this video ends. Sorry it took so long, but hopefully all the extra detail can help someone out in their overclocking with their own Ryzen processors. Don't forget to subscribe and auto-notify if you would like to stay up to date with TechForge content, and a very big thank you for watching and making it all the way through. Feel free to comment your thoughts, or like the video if me do good, or dislike if you think no do. I'm Nate from TechForge, and I'll see you in the next one.